Hi, everyone. This is Maria Angelescu with the Mother-Daughter team, and I am joined today by CEO of Ad Astra Host, Anton. Anton, thank you so much for coming on today. This is super exciting for other viewers who have seen everything that I did on my channel. Usually it's a Zoom call, a Google Meet, but today we're here in person. So this is super exciting. Thank you so much again for coming out today. Tell me about Ad Astra Host before we get into it. Tell me what it is that you do as CEO in regards to that.
Well, thanks for having me over. That's the first thing. And we are a short-term rental property management company, or if it's easier, Airbnb property management, because that's how everybody knows the space through Airbnb. And we basically, let's say you have a condo or a house, and you want to do short-term rentals. You don't want to do the long-term experience where the clients are there forever, right? And tenants are there forever. And you want to do short-term rentals, and that's awesome, but you're busy, you're a doctor, you live abroad, it's not an easy experience to do because you have check-in, check-outs, you got lots of questions, and you don't want to manage that process. So you are saying, what do I do? I still want to do short-term, you can make a little bit more money there, but I don't want to deal with the process. So that's where you hire us, and we do A to Z experience from getting your place set up. Well, you get the place set up, but we help you and guide you. And then we take care of all the guest communications, all the guest bookings, all the cleaning, all the maintenance, and we just send you a report in the beginning of the following month and a nice check. And that's the way it works.
That's awesome. So that's always nice to hear. And I really like what you touched on because it sounds pretty hands-off, right? A lot of people, like you said, they're a doctor. They travel a lot for work. They aren't able to be as hands-on, which is something that we might see usually in the long-term rental scene. So talk to me a little bit more about short-term rentals and the flexibility that offers for people.
That's a great question. That is one of our major selling points. And it's, short-term rentals sell themselves, especially in this market. The problem right now is that you have with the LTB board where it's almost impossible to get a tenant. And with short-term rentals, you don't have tenants, you have guests. So your flexibility is that your home remains your home, and you can sell it at any point in time. You can move back there at any point in time. You can spend 2-3 weeks there at any point in time. So you don't have that issue where, you can't even sell it. You got to go through courts. It's insane what we have to go through in Ontario these days. So that gives you so much flexibility, and it's a huge deal in this specific market. And that's why I get a lot of inquiries. People don't want to, even if they cannot get the short-term license in Toronto, they still want to do short-term rentals 30 days plus instead of doing this long-term procedure with tenants that are very difficult to get out.
Absolutely. And touching on the short-term license, what does that look like for people who, what does the process look like if you're familiar with that?
Right. So it's based on municipality. Even in the GTA, right, the Greater Toronto area, you have different pockets. And each municipality has different requirements. They're in general similar. They want it to be principal residence, so it has to be principal residence. They usually allow only 180 days because if it's your principal residence, you have to be there for half a year,
right?
Technically, right? And there's gray areas there. And most people who live abroad, they just rent it, and then you do 30 days plus, 28 days plus for the period when your short-term days are over. So it's the principal residence. It's the literally just like your driver's license. They're making those things more stringent. And in Oakville, for example, they need police report, right? Criminal background check. Like they need HVAC inspection. They have a lot more things. So it depends on the municipality. But the general rule of thumb is that you're allowed to rent 180 days. It needs to be a principal residence, and you need to prove that it's your principal residence. So those are the main things to mind when it comes to, and you got to pay for the license too.
Absolutely. So, and we're starting to see that more on the long-term rental side as well. In Hamilton, I know they're running a pilot program to try and get landlords to get a license to do that. I think it's great in a sense because we want to make sure that the people who are purchasing a short-term investment opportunity, that, they know all the rules and regulations that come along with that. So speaking to the rules and the regulations that are involved, what kind of hiccups or more stringent rules do you see, particularly in the GTA, since we're seeing Toronto really crack down on the short-term rental scene?
Right, that's
it's a loaded question.
So it's a lot of stuff to unpack there, but I would say that the main thing is the trajectory. The government are trying to stop the short-term rentals, but it's not possible because they're going to collapse the whole tourist industry. So they're treading lightly, and Airbnb is great at providing legal support and pushing the city, saying, listen, we should have rules so people are good operators. There's a good operator book, and we would love to follow that, but it has to be within reason. And now, like, a lot of new regulations came out, like the price of STR license, short-term rental license in Toronto, is going up from $55 to $375. When you're making a lot of money, it's not a big deal, but the city is trying to make as much as possible. They're asking now people to have exit diagrams in their units. They want emergency and 24 access numbers. Property management company like ours can provide that. And there's lots of little things that are coming in the pipeline, and they are hiring more people to do more inspections. I actually have one of the clients who are going through the process because their neighbors reported them that that it's not their principal residence. People should mind their own business often, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And now they're going through, they have to send them a bunch of documents like bank statements, their travel plans, et cetera, that they actually, it's their principal residence and they're just renting when they're away. And they have in-house inspections to see that they actually have their clothing there and it's not just, a stage hotel. So there is, they're making it more difficult, but it's still worth it because you make a lot more money by doing this, and you have the flexibility that we talked about.
Exactly. And so, when you're looking at places like Mexico or Florida, where for the most part, you can just rent out your property almost year round. But here in Canada and the GTA, we're looking at different seasons. So how do you guys combat the seasonal changes that we see and getting guests into the properties?
Well, every location has seasonal seasonal timings, right? And occupancy rates. So Mexico and Florida also have low season. In Mexico and Florida, the lowest season during the hurricane season, I think September to November, it's pretty dead. Mexico in the summer is not fantastic either because it's like plus 55 over there. I'm exaggerating, but it's very hot. Their hottest season in Mexico is January to the end of February, where everybody's making bank. But so it's like that everywhere, not just Toronto. Toronto is an easy slow season because it's just the winter, right? But what we do, because we only have 180 days to do short term, we use those 180 days during the high season to maximize the revenue. And during the slow season, we're doing midterm rentals, month to 3 months. A nurse is coming to a hospital where she needs to work for a few months. We get her in. So we combine both strategies, and we work around the rules, or work rather with the rules, and we're able to maximize the profits that way. Use the short-term days in the summer and do the midterm in the winter during the slow season. So you're, maximizing the profits throughout the whole year.
And that sounds like a really good strategy. So speaking to the profitability of short-term rentals, why, in your opinion, should investors choose a short-term rental versus a long-term rental when it comes to the profitability?
Right. Like we talked about flexibility, that's pretty understandable. And the profitability, I would say on average, let's use a downtown condo, for example. If you have a condo downtown that is in a Airbnb allowed condo, so officially you can Airbnb there, you're not sneaking around the concierge and the property management, you're able to make from 20 to 50%, depending on how things go, depending on the, what's happening in the world, because people still need to travel, but sometimes during recessions, you're not making as much. You're making 100% more in the summer, or even more than 100%. I've seen, and I'm talking about money in your pocket after all the cleaning fees, after Airbnb commission, after our commission, right? And you're making double in the summer, and you're breaking even, you're making as much money as you probably would from long-term rental in the winter, maybe a little bit less. But that summer really pulls you up. So I have properties that are making 45% more, 35% more, 50% more. And that is the range. I would say you should be making more money by at least 20% than from a long-term rental. So I've never seen a property make less. So it's very advantageous financially, and you have the flexibility. So if you do have a condo, but not all the condos allow it, you do have a condo, Toronto downtown, that allows Airbnbs, you're sitting in a gold mine. And if you're doing long-term rentals, you're literally missing out on all the money and the flexibility.
Absolutely. And what I like that you touched on is you're making so much more, but on the flip side of things is you also have an investment that's gaining passive equity and passive appreciation over time. So let's say, someone wants an exit strategy 5 years down the line. They also have been able to take advantage of the short-term profitability, but the long-term passive appreciation of the property as well.
Of course. Of course. And it would still appreciate if you're doing long-term. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that people have different objectives and what they're doing in their lives, right? They might live abroad and they want to use it for a month out of the year. Or I have clients who specifically purchased an investment, rather not even an investment. They purchased the property where they live, but they're digital nomads and they're traveling during the winter and some of the, times during the summer. And we rent out during that time. So they're making money during the time that they're away because the building allows Airbnbs, and then they're using it as their own properties, their principal residence. They log their personal belongings in one of the closets, and it works beautifully. So that's a really good way to kind of combine things together.
Right. So you mentioned that you have individuals like digital nomads who, the Airbnb and the short-term rental structure works really well for them. What other kind of investors do you see or work with or clients of yours that have purchased a short-term rental property that they can put on Airbnb?
Right. So that's one example. Another example, people who just live abroad. And technically, you're supposed to be in Canada, but, like I said, there's gray areas. So people who are living abroad and they want to come for a month or a few weeks a year, and they, instead of renting a hotel, they can come back to their place. It's their home, and they're making money while they're away. And then if something happens, they can easily sell it right away. They don't need to go through courts and come back and get the tenants out. It's their place. They can sell it, get the money, move it to a place where they live. That's another level of clients. The reason it's more challenging in other aspects is because you have to have it as your principal residence. So you need to asking your family members, putting their name on the license and like they live over there. It's possible. Again, we're getting into gray areas. We don't want to hear about it. We'll manage a property, but the owners need to prepare. We just tell them this is the situation. That's the legality of things. If you figure it out, however you figure it out, we don't want to know. We'll manage it if it's properly registered. And if it's an Airbnb-friendly building, because it's almost impossible to work around when it's not. It becomes a hassle, not a business. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's the way it works. So yeah, people who are interested in that flexibility, anybody can purchase it, but they have to understand that they have to have a strategy of having that as their principal residence or like a principal residence of a family member.
And why has your company decided to use Airbnb as the main platform? What's so great about Airbnb?
Well, it's not the only platform we use. We use Booking.com. We use Cottages in Canada for cottages. If VRBO was legal in Toronto, it's actually not licensed for the GTA, so you're not allowed to, you can't list on VRBO in Toronto. Mm-hmm. We would use all of them. We never use Facebook Marketplace or Kijiji because the quality of the leads and the guests there would not be the same. We have very high standards for what we want. And why Airbnb? Because first of all, they're huge. Everybody knows if they want to go and stay at somebody's place, if they don't want a hotel, they got to go to Airbnb,
it's
right?
It's the go-to, yeah.
Exactly. So they did the good marketing. In addition to that, Airbnb provides damage protections called air cover. So if we don't allow parties, we don't allow any kind of that stuff, smoking, et cetera, in our premises. But if, God forbid, something happens and there's some damage, Airbnb covers that. There's no issues with Booking.com. It's trickier. They don't do that. So we have other ways of mitigating those risks, but we prefer Airbnb, and your calendar is 90% booked with Airbnb anyways. You don't need other platforms. And like I said, Booking.com and other platforms, they are secondary kind of backup. We even have higher prices on those platforms. So if somebody books, we make some more money for the client.
Right. That makes total sense. So and that's the thing, like anytime that I'm looking to book a place when I'm going abroad, wherever it is, constantly Airbnb. I don't even look at hotels personally anymore. I literally just go on Airbnb, right? Because it's a little bit more lenient in that sense. How are you guys vetting guests who want to come stay? Is there a process that you guys go through?
Yes, for sure. We vet every guest, even though we have a setup where guests can book automatically. It's InstaBook, and they just book if they want to. But then once they book, we look at their profile, we look at their reviews, we, send a few messages, we see the way they communicate, and you can gauge so much from that.
Oh, absolutely.
And once you have some concerns of what's happening, like you see we have stringent house rules, like I said, no party, no smoking, no pets. And also minimum 25 years of age, mm-hmm. because you can do those things. You can set anything you want on Airbnb because it's short-term rental. You can have any regulations. There's whatever you want. That's the benefit of doing short-term rentals. With long-term rentals, you can't set rules. It's illegal to say can't rent it to an 18-year-old kid, right?
Right.
Here, it's your property. I'm not comfortable with having 19-year-old students coming and having a party because they're probably going to have a party. And then you see a young guy who looks like he's 19 in the picture, and you're like, what's going on? So you start messaging, you see their intentions, and you see, oh, they're planning on having a party. Well, they're going to a concert. Oh, we're not partying, we're just sleeping there. Okay, yeah, right. So and then you say, hey, listen, we're not comfortable with this. We don't have we have very stringent house rules. It's best you cancel and find someone else. We've had those situations, and people are like, oh, yeah, we better do it. We install monitoring devices for decibel levels and for smoke that will also tell us. And we say there's $1,000 fine if those go off. So be very careful. Like, you might want to reconsider this. And they say, yeah. And they cancel, and it's not an issue. So we definitely go through the vetting process. That's very organic. The first stage are these stringent house rules, and most people don't even want to book it because they see the stringent house, like, we're not dealing with this, we'll book somebody else's. And then the second level would be our communication. And we see, okay, they kind of pass that bar, but it still sounds weird. It's very rare because mostly we get business professional families. You can see right away in pictures and the way that they also write you a message. You send them a welcome message and they say, hey, we're coming with, family to see Toronto. And you're like, okay, good, perfect, nice, right?
And I like that you mention all of these things because you can tell that you really care about taking care of your property owners, of your clients, to make sure that their property is well taken care of. A lot of people who I've talked to in the past, investors who are thinking, should I go the long-term route? Should I go the Airbnb short-term rental route? They always bring up the wear and tear on the property. They always bring up, well, it's a revolving door of people coming in and out of my property, so my property is going to be damaged by the end of a couple of years. Do you have a different experience with that?
Yeah, it's actually the biggest myth in the short-term rental space, right? And just to kind of mention our values, our core values are the following. The first and the most important value is that we want your home to remain your home, and we're going to take care of it as though it's our home. So it's not maximizing your revenue, maximizing your profit. It's not something else. It's literally that. Maximizing the profit comes as the second most important thing because we need to all make money. We're on commission. We don't want to work for free.
I hear you.
We want to make you money. But first of all, we're going to take care of your property so it's in immaculate condition. That's our goal. And when something happens, we will take care of everything. We'll use air cover or anything else. So you don't need to worry about anything, because that is, if somebody had a party at my place, that's what I would do. We would do it for you. So that's our philosophy. And it's not for everybody because some people they don't care what's happening. They just want to make money. So I say there are other companies that focus on that. They don't wash bed sheets. They save money that way. It's, my head of cleaning, she told me a wild story. She's like, yeah, people don't want to, people tell us if the sheets look clean, don't wash them. I'm like,
oh,
what?
hell no.
So yeah, so not a good situation. And then your question in terms of wear and tear, biggest myth, because you have professional cleaning done after every single time the guests leave. They stay there for 3 days, 5 days, we get professional cleaning. The place is immaculate. If they mess something up, if they scuff up the walls, if it doesn't look good, there is wear and tear, then the next guests are not going to give you a 5-star review. So you always need to upkeep it and make it the best possible, because you will not get those reviews. Your listing will get throttled, and it will it'd rather drop. Throttle, it would go up. It would get dropped down in ranking, and you're not going to be making money. So it is essential to keep the property in immaculate condition, and we specialize on that. Our cleaning instructions is 17 pages. We charge the top dollar for cleaning. We're more expensive than other cleaning fees on the market, but the properties look immaculate. We have signature welcoming aromas, like in the hotels when people walk in. It's a nice experience. Like there's premium linens and custom shampoos. So we want to curate that kind of four seasons experience at the Airbnb. Of course, Four Seasons are, they've been doing it for 60 years. We have not, but we strive towards that. And like I said, our management is not for everybody, but where people have similar values, they will appreciate that. And that's very important to make sure there is minimal wear and tear. And in comparison to long-term rentals, those places get gutted by long-term tenants. It's insane.
Oh, and that's what I deal with all the time. And I wanted to touch on a point that you mentioned earlier where you can be talking to an 18, 19-year-old and say, you know what, actually, I don't think I'm going to, let this potential guest stay here because of whatever reason. When we're talking about long-term rentals, that's a very different story because we have the Ontario Human Rights Code in place. So we have to be very, very careful about discrimination. So there are many things that we can't say to people, and we can't discriminate on age. We can't discriminate by, sex. Of course not. But it's just crazy how to see that it's so different when we're talking about a different kind of real estate investment, and how the approach and the management to this different kind of real estate investment, being the short-term rental, is so different from the long-term scene. I almost wish, in a way, like you said, because so many long-term properties have been gutted, I almost wish that there was some sort of scoring system that existed for long-term landlords. It would be great, right? 4 stars, 1 star. You know how many landlords I've dealt with that would get a 1-star review? Like, not even a 1-star review.
Yeah.
And tenants the same.
Yeah, and when we see a guest booking with 4 stars, we reject them because we read a few reviews, and if one review is weird out of like 20, okay, maybe, some hosts are intense as well, but if you have 2-3 reviews that are like not a great guest, they left it dirty, like, we don't want that. We don't want to deal with that. Like, it's a hassle, right? Like, it's going to be calling in our team to deal with issues. We don't need that. Somebody else is going to book it. And to your point, if a long-term tenant damages something, they can write it off to, oh, that's regular wear and tear. I've had it multiple times where you have to like replace the floors, et cetera, et cetera. After a year, it was a disaster. Like, she let the dogs go on the floor, I think, the whole year.
I've seen it all.
It was not good. And you can't get that money. You got to take people to court, takes months, years. Here, call Airbnb or message them. Air cover will cover your losses. They might not cover it to 100%, but they will cover a significant amount of it.
Better than nothing. When we're dealing with a landlord and tenant board, it's like pulling teeth.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Exactly.
It's something versus, it's quite a bit actually versus nothing. So, when we spoke earlier about investments, where should people invest? And I would say, hey, just if you're buying a condo, just buy it in an Airbnb-friendly building, because then you have a choice. You want to rent long-term? Rent long-term. You want to live there? You live there. But you also have the flexibility of saying, hey, I can do short-term here. I can get the license, and I can make... You can go through all the process that we just discussed, make more money, have the flexibility, have the place in a better shape. So it's, why not do that if you're already investing into something?
Exactly. And it, like you said, it all brings it back to the flexibility. You have different options. When we're dealing with the long-term rentals, for those who are watching, if you already have a long-term rental opportunity, try and diversify that portfolio that you already have, right? We see so many investors that are winning by diversifying their portfolio. They have a mix of active real estate investments with the long-term, with the short-term opportunities, or a property, like you said, a condo where you can do both. And then they also take advantage of the passive real estate investment options where they're completely hands-off and there's no form of, management company that's coming in. But bringing it back to many amazing points that you've made is you have the profitability there. You have the flexibility there. You can be a super busy person who works 80-hour weeks, and Airbnb can still work for you. It's sounding, I don't personally own a short-term rental property myself, and just hearing you talk about all these things. Yeah, I want one. I'm like, where do I get myself one? As a real estate agent, I should be able to find it.
I can send you a list of a few condos downtown that allow that.
There you go. So what areas are you typically dealing with? Are you usually in Toronto, or are there other regions that you look at as well?
So our company specifically deals with condos downtown.
Okay.
And high-end properties around the GTA area. They have to be very high-end for us to take. And we're a boutique company. We don't have a lot of properties, but not a lot, meaning like 15. And we're not looking to grow past 25, 30 because we want to provide amazing experience for our clients. And we want to focus on the premium sector. So that is what we're doing. And, there's great companies that have 60 properties that I'm friends with, and they do a great job, but they just don't offer the same level of service, and that's totally fine. There's niches for everybody, and they do provide good experience for their clients, but we just try and take it to the next level, take it to the next step, and not everybody needs it, but there's a market for everything. So we fill that niche because those are the values that we built in. And like I said, it's a great space to be in, and we really enjoy working with all the clients and the guests. It's a nice experience. I actually truly enjoy what I do.
No, I can clearly tell that, and I can very much tell that you give your clients a white glove service.
That's the whole purpose. That's what we had on the website before.
Well,
even still.
It's almost like I did my research.
Right on. There you go.
No, but regardless, even if I hadn't, I can tell that you're very passionate about it and you care about your clients. You want to make sure that they're, like you said, taken care of first and foremost. The money part will follow after, right? I had my boss, actually, she always tells me, Maria, take care of your clients and your pocketbook and your checkbook will fill up. That's not an issue. So I think that's probably the experience for you, right?
Exactly.
So
We've seen that happen, and it's been a grueling process in the beginning, building
Right.
all the foundation and the structure of the business. But we've seen an amazing kind of return on investment, and because people do want this and they appreciate that. And then, like I said, we're going to be increasing our rates after a certain point because we are delivering something that nobody else is, and
course.
we're going to be, the first guys got in at a reasonable rate. Now it's going to be more. If you want to work with us, that's how much it costs because we know what we deliver. We have excellent cleaning team. We have excellent, support on the back end, and gas communication. Everything is top notch. So, the process is really great for the clients.
Right. You know your value and your clients know your value. That's why they keep coming back to you.
Exactly.
Right? So let's pivot back a little bit and talk about the Airbnb scene. Like we said, politicians are really, and the government itself is really cracking down on short-term rentals. Do you foresee any changes coming in the near future? Have you heard anything from certain municipalities in regards to changes coming to short-term rentals?
It's a very difficult question to answer because I don't have a crystal ball.
That's right.
But based on what I'm seeing is that every municipality eventually will put those STR, short-term rental regulations in place and make the licenses because they'll make some money. They don't need to reinvent the wheel. They'll just take, already existing charter or whatever you want to call it, of rules and regulations from another municipality, tweak it to their need, and then they will roll it out and make money from. Some will charge $50, some will charge $600. Like in Muskoka regions, they charge $600 for a license for just 2.5 months.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. But, property owners make a lot of money, so that's, it's part of the game. That's where it's at right now. Where are they going to go? It's been a witch hunt because, politicians are screaming that, short-term rentals are killing the supply. They're involved.
Affordability crisis.
They're a major factor in the housing crisis. And the StatCan study, don't quote me on the name of the other ones, other studies came out and they said that short-term rentals have minimal to zero impact on that because they're just such a small fraction of the supply. It's literally less than 1.6 or 1.5% in some places even less than 1%. And that's not going to make any effect. Even if you put all of them on the market, it's going to either make no effect or such a little dent that it's not even noticeable. So it's just a witch hunt and it has nothing to do with reality. But, they're still pushing that agenda. And so it is more difficult for people to be able to attain short-term license, but it's better for the ones who already have because then you have lower supply of Airbnbs and the ones who have it, they're in demand. So it kind of works well for the properties that we're managing. And will they get more stringent? Potentially, but it's very hard to tell. Maybe they will relax them a bit because New York is a great example where hotel prices went up by 30 to 50% because they pretty much banned Airbnb. They didn't ban it, but it's not an Airbnb experience anymore that we are used to. An owner has to be at the unit when they're renting a room.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
That's not even like that. You can't even rent.
It's not feasible at all.
Yeah, so it's not the same experience. So people who wanted their own unit, an apartment, right? And there's nothing wrong with hotels. Hotels have their own space. I love hotels, right? You have that experience. But if you want to have your kitchen, you want to have that type of experience, you need an Airbnb, right? If you have a larger family coming, instead of renting 3 hotel rooms, you just get one apartment with 2 bedrooms and somebody sleeps in the living room, right? And they don't have that option anymore in New York City. So the hotel prices went through the roof. It's very difficult. I know, and housing prices didn't go down. The rents didn't go down. It didn't change anything. So there's that example. Maybe a year or two in, people, and that was only done last year, they will clue in and say, hey, this is actually not helping. Let's relax these rules or let's leave these rules and make it reasonable for people to, of course, we want to get rid of the people who are taking advantage of the situation because things went wild in Toronto a few years back where everything was Airbnb. That's not okay either. It has to be a balance. So the pendulum swung the other way where people listings were taken down for having street on Airbnb and ST in the license, and then they just took the listing down because there's different spelling of name street. You can't put ST in Airbnb. Airbnb automatically changes ST to street. So, and people had their listings taken down. Compliance wouldn't reply for weeks and months, and all the bookings were taken off. People lost tens of thousands of dollars in income. So that's unacceptable either. So now it's actually swinging back a little bit to the middle, where they send you a message first saying, hey, your address looks different. Can you please confirm and change it to this? And then you send them a screenshot, be like, it is the same. What's the problem? They're like, okay, it's fine. Before, they would just take you down and that's it. So maybe they're learning, and I feel like it will come somewhere in the middle. That's the long answer to your question.
That's the hope, right? And so and like you said, I think it's, the government likes to get their little fingers involved in absolutely everything, but sometimes they need to be a bit more hands-off. Like we see everything that's happening with interest rates and how the market changed so drastically. I mean, that's a whole other video topic that I could do in future. But we know that they get their fingers and hands involved in things that maybe sometimes they need to relax a little bit, right? Yep. To put it simply. So, one more question kind of before we wrap up. When you are talking to someone who maybe is interested in buying a investment property for short-term rentals for Airbnb, what would you recommend to them? I know you said you work primarily usually in the condo or the premium sector. What recommendations are you making to them for the type of property or the areas of property to look into?
Right. The best profitability for a short-term rental price versus how much you're going to be making, return on your investment, would be a condo downtown that allows an Airbnb. You can buy a house, but houses are trickier because, sometimes the specific area that you buy a house in, even in Toronto, might not get as much demand. So you need to start crafting different strategies. Maybe people stay there for a little bit longer. It attracts that specific group of people. We have a few like that, and it's tricky to find the right solution to make sure that it's fully booked, that it's maximizing its profit. But a condo downtown is a condo downtown. You're right by Sky Dome, I like to call it the Rogers Center. It's right by the Scotiabank Arena, where all the concerts are. It's CN Towers right there. So you're walking distance to everything. You're going to be killing it on the summer regardless, right? So it's a safe bet. An Airbnb, a condo where Airbnb is allowed by the management, so there's no issues. There are a few, like I said, I could provide you with the list. And that is the best bet that I would say. You can buy somewhere else because you have other objectives, like you want a house and you want to live there a little bit, then you short-term rent it a bit. Sure, but now you don't know exactly how it's going to perform. It's going to perform, but here you're pretty much guaranteed a performance if you want a safe bet. That's what I tell all the agents that I work with who have those questions and their investors come and ask these questions.
You heard it here, people. I'm here to help you buy your short-term rental properties. Anton is here to manage the property for you. It's a good team. We'll make it happen together. Anton, thank you so much for coming on. This has been so informative. I think just to kind of summarize, we've given our viewers an opportunity to A, decide is a short-term rental for them. B, does a lifestyle and their finances allow for them to get into the short-term rental scene? And how can they remain hands-off and not have to deal with something like, being a landlord and dealing with a long-term rental? I think it's a fantastic option for people who want to look into it further. Reach out to me. Anton, where can people find you?
We can provide a phone number that they can reach us at, or they can find us at Ad Astra Host, I think, on social media.
I know, I always forget.
My team runs it. I love them, but I personally am not a big fan of social media.
I'll tag everything in the caption
Yeah,
so
but
people can find it.
We'll tag that, and I'm pretty sure it's Ad Astra Host on social media, and we actually do quite a few fun things on social media, so do check us out.
Nice.
So feel free to reach out that way, or website adastra.host is the website. Again, you will leave the phone number. We're happy to chat.
Absolutely. In the description box. I'm new to this whole YouTube thing, so I'm like, is it the caption? Is it the description box? We're figuring it out one day at a time, right? Well, thank you so much, Anton. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for your time and the invite.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.